Hello, my name is Robbie Fitzwater. I own and operate Marketing Rhythm. We help e-commerce businesses with retention marketing. And basically what that means is a lot of email and SMS marketing. So the way we think about a lot of the work we do also involves a lot of content marketing. So content marketing is kind of one of the core components of what we do and kind of how we bring a lot of the strategies we use to life. So content marketing is basically the concept of, hey, how are we creating marketing that adds value beyond the transaction? It basically educates, informs, and engages our audience to keep them coming back or to get them in the door in the first place. So how much money should I invest in content marketing is typically one of the questions we get from a lot of e-commerce retailers. How much should I invest in content marketing, and how much should I think about content marketing in terms of where it plays a role in the revenue that I'm making? And basically we're thinking about this in terms of two different types of content. So the first type of content that most businesses are actually looking at is typically going to be SEO, or ideally going to be driving some type of value through SEO, through organic search. And basically that's going to be driving people at the top of your funnel where you can, again, acquire new customers. That's some of the smartest marketing you can do because you're investing in the long-term health of the brand, and also you're investing in a long-term, traffic driver that's going to help grow your business. And if you're doing it well, it's like compound interest. It gets more and more valuable over time. So that's where you want to be thinking about that. Again, SEO is top of the funnel traffic driving or new traffic to the site. There's also content that is going to be focused a little bit more on engagement. And that's content is going to be, we call it, a little bit more warm and fuzzy, but more focused around engaging the audience. So educating, inspiring, entertaining your audience, typically going to be meant towards your existing customers and helping them use the product better, get more value out of the product, and basically keeps people coming back to your site and keeps people coming back into your funnel because that's, again, they're finding some value in it. Basically, when we're thinking about this, both of these pay dividends in the long run, but the content really does play a large role in helping us grow. And basically, when we're thinking about this for a business, how much should I invest in this, or how much should I think about this? A smaller growing business where you're still finding that product market fit and you're still evolving, that 20 to 30% is probably a good healthy percentage. Even smaller, even around 20% if you're really young, where you're just working on acquiring a customer base, making sure that that's going to be fit and expanding from there. Once you've matured a little bit, that 30 and up is typically where that sweet spot is, up to 30 to 50%, where you're spending a lot of money on content. You don't want to be ignoring the distribution of that content, but you're not always just focused solely on the acquisition side through paid. You're working on building a sustainable marketing ecosystem, and that doesn't involve only focusing on ROAS all the time. So that's where we like to play with content, and content plays a large role in the way we think about the work we do. So what type of ROI should I expect from content? And again, this is going to be kind of it's going to be subjective based on your business, how long it takes for that content to monetize is going to be very dependent on a lot of different variables. So if you have a larger email list where you can distribute that content to, you're going to probably see a really fast return on investment. It's probably at a really high rate because you're not having that acquisition cost associated with it, with getting that person back in the door, but you're also being able to reach a more broad audience and hopefully a more qualified and broad audience. Typically thinking about this in terms of from the email perspective, how well am I going to be able to monetize this? If I can do this well, I can, again, break even or make double the investment I made in that content quickly through campaigns. That's where we typically see, if I were to write 4 articles, and again, in 4 consecutive months, let's just use that for example. Article 1, we make that big pop of revenue through email. And that's our email revenue for that article. Then the next month, we can probably take that and probably find a place to automate it within our existing automations. So we have this nice base of automated revenue we're going to be driving each month after that. Plus, we're introducing another article, number 2, and then we send an email and we make some money. So basically, we're taking this article then and bringing it down into here, where again, we're taking that basic existing automations, crossing over, because again, that happens every month, or that happens consistently, and then we're adding a little bit to it each time. Basically what that gives us is a great position to continue to grow, because we're giving ourselves a nice stable foundation that we're growing over time, that incremental revenue. We're also giving ourselves a nice pop of revenue through each one of those emails that we're sending. And when those emails are going to be relevant or like contextual or evergreen, we can recycle those and use those more and more frequently. So we're probably going to be seeing the benefits of that sooner than later. And especially if we're like a larger brand that has a bigger email audience, like if we spend $1,000 investing in a piece of content and we drive $10,000 in email from that piece of content, like this just gives us an opportunity to reach out and communicate with our audience. And where a lot of groups will use the one email strategy of like week 1, 10% off, week 2, 15% off, week 3, 20% off. It's not necessarily a sustainable strategy because it kind of falls flat really quickly. This is where we can really kind of like incorporate all the best of what we're doing to earn and maintain the attention of our audience, which is the hardest and that attention is the most valuable commodity around, and it's hard to earn and harder to maintain. So we want to be focusing on that. Basically, again, that content allows us to keep people engaged, keep that conversation going without sacrificing margin or commoditizing our brand. And that's where we really don't have to rely on discounts. We don't have to rely on promotions as much. If we can keep that conversation going, we tee ourselves up for a lot of great success. That content complements the products and services we likely offer, and content that we can be strategic about, like how does this complement what we're doing already, and how does it complement and help our audience and our customers use the products they're purchasing better. That's kind of some of the content that really wins so much of the time. And then so much of the way we use that content is kind of as a Trojan horse to open the door for more conversation and say, if we have an article that we're publishing at a given time that mentions XYZ product, we can incorporate that product into the actual content, but also into the email saying like, okay, I want to learn how to make a pour over coffee. Oh yeah, here's the items you need to make a pour over. Oh yeah, we carry those. And also here's some coffees that make good pour overs. Those are easy ways to do that, but it's kind of functions as a Trojan horse for us to drive more revenue from our audience without, again, sacrificing margin because we're adding value in the form of content as opposed to a discount. Big believer in it. So we can think about this in terms of like two different ways to monetize. So monetizing through content, through campaigns. Monetizing through campaigns is going to be basically those, again, campaign emails we're sending on a fairly frequent basis where we're reaching out to a large audience or a small audience, depending on what our segments look like, to try, again, communicate something. So lining up relevant timing for the audience is super important. And if we can do that, we can hopefully add value to them at different times of the year. So like if I'm a hydration company, I maybe sharing an article like how to stay hydrated while running in the summer. That's going to be helpful for my audience and going to be also give them a way to ideally transact during that too. But again, that's something they're interested in. If it's the summer, it's probably hot. They're trying to get that information because they want to be successful. If I'm a hiking company, it's like how to plan for your summer hiking trip. Again, that's where it's going to be super relevant contextually. You're not going to be sharing this in the winter, but you can share kind of like the winter version of this where it's not like super reinventing the wheel. But typically these are going to be things that are going to be, again, insights and understandings that your team is going to be bringing to the table that really gives you the unique opportunity here. Because if you were a brick and mortar retailer, you'd be answering these questions every day. In terms of e-commerce businesses, you're just taking those same questions and you're answering them in a public space where they can be, again, communicated at scale, which gives you a lot of unique opportunities because, again, it grows with you, but you're not beholden to one geographic region. So when you have content like that, you can also recycle it during the years. So like we have clients that we've built articles for 3 years ago that we've actually used 3 years in a row. And there's no shame in doing that because we've refreshed and tweaked those articles and made them a little bit better. But we have kind of the roadmap for what we're going to be doing each season because we know what's in the mind of our audience and what's in the mind of our customer, and we can serve them in a unique way. And that content allows us to do that in a helpful, meaningful way. And then also when we think about that content, we're thinking about how that content also tees us up for more sales if we're running a promotion or a sale event, in the way that we can have, hey, this content serves the lead in to a joke and the sale and the promotion is the punchline. So we're engaging our audience through that, again, communication, and the punchline is going to be what we use to actually do the selling. So really helpful ways to think about those campaigns and how they drive revenue for you. The second piece is our monetization through automations. And this is where these are going to be super relevant and contextual through that customer journey, because they are going to be able to be sent specifically based on where they're at, which helps us line up that content really well and gives us kind of it's almost like cheating, I feel like sometimes, because it's like you know exactly where that person's at in their customer journey, and you can just fit the right content with the right person at the right time, and you just crushes it. So like if somebody purchases from my coffee roaster, somebody purchases for the first time, why don't I send them an article about, hey, how do you grind your coffee beans? Or how do you brew your coffee? And helpful articles and tips around how we do that. We can send a few of those at a time if we want to really onboard that person smoothly. But basically, the more use and value they're going to find out of the product, the faster they're going to use it and the faster they're going to reorder. So the more value we can add, the better position we're going to be in. And then also, if you are like a children's clothing brand and somebody hasn't purchased in the past and they're making their first purchase, basically I can say like, we can share like, hey, like what are the 10 things every new parent needs? And basically that's helping with that pre-purchase and like helping them get to that end goal of like being successful and like clothing their kid. But all of those things really contribute at different stages of the journey. So that's where we're lining that content up at different stages of our customer journey to make the most impact possible. The better we know our customers and the better we can line that content up, the better luck we're going to have and the better performance we're going to have through those automations. And then that's where we can get a little bit more gangster over time, where we can segment differently. We can get a little bit more narrow in our focus. If we know somebody's a gift giver, we can treat them differently than somebody purchasing for themselves. And those are all kind of variables we'll use and think about over time. And then how do we use content in sale campaigns? This is one of the areas we kind of love using content in, because it's a little bit of a pattern interrupt. So like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, around the holidays, like thinking everybody's going to get 1 million sale emails. And it's going to happen. And again, our clients, we need to be sending sale emails because we need to be driving a lot of revenue, a lot of volume at that time. Like a great way to kind of break up that pattern of like sale, so we don't feel like a used car lot, is incorporating content into that sale pattern where, again, like we take a little bit of a break and we may share an article like, hey, 10 best gifts for cyclists. It's a really great way of breaking that up. And oh yeah, we also sell those products, so here's where you can get them. And just making that really easy for our audience and making it easy for them to, like, again, something to stand out because they're getting the same thing over and over and over, and allows us to really zig when everybody else is zagging. And again, can generally have some fun with that. And typically those don't have a huge time investment involved with them because, again, your team has those insights already that you're just trying to bring them into the world at a certain level of scale. And then like another one would be like our team's summer gear recommendations with like those items available. Like those are just easy ways you can do that to incorporate your team, show some product expertise, show some domain knowledge, help them kind of like build a relationship, but also see you as the subject matter expert in this category, especially around like, again, promotions. Like this is a really great win. And then we also like to incorporate content in the rollout of a new category for, like, again, selling new products. So like if one of our clients was working on a coffee roaster introduced tea. Tea is different than the core product we've sold in the past, but again, incorporating content like, hey, like your guide to tea, like a coffee drinker's guide to tea, or again, dipping your toe into tea. It's a really easy way of framing that tea as kind of a complement to coffee, and like piggybacking off like, hey, coffee drinkers like tea because of this, like less caffeine in the afternoon, like supplements like your coffee ritual, your daily coffee ritual, and really helps to kind of like connect those two and helps to educate and inform them, because again, we've positioned ourselves as the thought leaders on coffee, and now we're suddenly positioning ourselves on, again, tea. Those aren't so different, but we can kind of help our audience make that transition, and that content's a really great way to do that if we want to sell more of that product. So lots of different ways we can do this to keep that conversation going, and lots of different ways we can hopefully have fun with it. But that's where content really fits into the monetization strategy for e-commerce, because so much of that attention is placed on that, again, top of the funnel traffic, more customers. But if we can drive more retention through our customers, that's going to be a huge differentiator for our business. And that content's one of the ways that we're not going to necessarily outscale the giants in our space, but we're going to outhuman them. And that's where we really find that competitive advantage for some of those like D2C darling stores, is that outhumanization of the other competitors in your space. So Basically, at the end of the day, content is one of those things. It's a challenge for people to think of more concretely and less abstractly. But once you're getting into that rhythm of sharing valuable content, it's basically building a longer term business asset for you over time. That content's going to help you, again, drive revenue, drive retention, and also build your business without sacrificing margin through discounting and also decommoditizing your product and service. So from this perspective, we see this as one of the best levers to improve the customer experience, but also drive that lifetime value that we really want to see from our customers. And again, it doesn't necessarily happen overnight to build up a full base of content. It can take years, and it definitely will, but it's something that you should be thinking about early. Even if you are a younger business and a newer business getting into this, it's a really unique opportunity that isn't as competitive as some other categories right now. So thinking less transactional, more relational, and giving yourself the opportunity to grow. Hopefully this was helpful. Let me know if you guys have more questions. If there's anything I missed, let me know. I know this is part 2 of what we started last time. There's some stuff that overlaps, but I think there's a lot of good core ideas that hopefully should help think through this in a little bit different way, that you can see how these are all going to be driving revenue for the business. So if you have any questions, let me know. This is Robbie Fitzwater, Marketing Rhythm, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.